Have you ever walked down a quiet, perfectly ordinary suburban street and just wondered, what kinds of secrets are hiding behind those closed doors? It's so easy to look at a calm neighborhood in Japan and just assume everything is as peaceful as it seems. But as we'll see in today's explainer, even the most unassuming places can hide some seriously dark stories of tragedy and honestly unprecedented human determination. So let's just dive right into this. We're looking at the story of Samuel Haruto. He was a guy living a pretty simple life until it was completely shattered in a single afternoon, kicking off a decades-long pursuit of the truth. $145,000. Think about that for a second. That is a staggering amount of money, especially for a working-class guy. But over the course of nearly 3 decades, Samuel Haruto paid that exact amount in rent for a modest little apartment. And here's the crazy catch. He never actually lived there. Not once during that whole time. He never slept in the bedroom, never cooked a meal in the kitchen, never even stepped foot inside to just, enjoy the space. So why on earth would anyone pour an absolute fortune into an empty apartment? Well, the answer is both brilliant and deeply, deeply heartbreaking. This unassuming apartment wasn't a home at all. It was deliberately kept as a frozen crime scene. Haruto basically transformed his former home into a meticulously preserved time capsule of truth. He realized that if he ever wanted to get justice, he had to make absolutely sure that crucial, microscopic evidence remained completely untouched. No passing of time, no cleaners, not even the police themselves could disturb it. It was literally the ultimate act of preservation. Part 1. The Frozen Crime Scene. A Family Shattered. To really understand why he did this, we've got to go back to the very beginning. Haruto was just a diligent family man. One afternoon, he's returning from running some routine errands, opens his front door, and steps into an absolute nightmare. His wife had been brutally murdered in cold blood, and their 2-year-old child was left there, completely alone in the aftermath, traumatized and vulnerable. But the mystery really only deepened from there. There were 0 signs of forced entry, absolutely no robbery. It was like the violence had just materialized out of thin air. Part 2. A trail gone cold. No suspects or motive. So the authorities arrived promptly, right? But they hit a massive brick wall at every single turn. Just total frustration. There's no evidence of theft, no known beefs with the neighbors, and no enemies with a grudge that the police could pinpoint. But there was this one single microscopic piece of evidence left behind, a tiny blood sample. The problem, it was mixed. It contained traces of both his wife's and the murderer's DNA. And back then, in the 1990s, forensic technology just could not separate intertwined genetic material. The evidence was sitting right there, but the science to actually read it, it just didn't exist yet. And this brings us to a really pivotal moment for Haruto. He's faced with a justice system that is totally blind to the only clue he has. So this unthinkable plan starts forming in his mind. He decides to treat the apartment not as this place of trauma that needs to be cleaned up and forgotten, but as a time capsule of truth. He makes the agonizing choice to forbid anyone from entering. Nobody could disturb the space. Nobody could clean that metallic scent of blood from the air. Because he knew, for a fact, that cleaning would completely destroy that delicate, mixed DNA. He would just have to wait for the technology to catch up to the evidence. Part 3. The 26-year wait. Patience and discipline. I mean, really think about the sheer mental fortitude and discipline it takes to wait decades for justice. Every single day for 26 years, he had to face this enormous temptation to just move on, to sell the property, or let the authorities handle it in their usual flawed ways. But he resisted. And he wasn't just sitting around passively either. He executed a brilliant multi-pronged strategy. Step 1, like we talked about, was the physical preservation of the apartment. Step 2, he actively engaged the media to keep this unresolved case alive in the public consciousness, because he knew public pressure keeps the police working. And step 3, well, that was his biggest hurdle yet, lobbying the government. You see, Haruto was racing against a ticking clock, the 15-year expiration date. Under Japanese law at the time, unsolved cases were just legally closed after 15 years if no progress was made. The logic was basically that resources shouldn't be wasted on cold trails. But what that meant for Haruto was that even if the technology caught up in year 16, the killer would just walk free. The law itself was literally standing in the way of justice. So following this path, that agonizing 15-year statute of limitations was rapidly approaching. Now, most people, they'd probably give up. But Haruto, he joins NGOs, he connects with lawmakers, and he lobbies tirelessly. His main argument is simple. Justice shouldn't have an expiration date. And remarkably, he wins. He successfully lobbies to modify Japanese legislation, allowing critical cases like his to remain open indefinitely. And it's a good thing he did, because that legal victory paved the way for year 26, when science finally delivered on Haruto's long bet. Part 4. The chilling reveal. Science catches up. Over those 2.5 decades, forensic science advanced in absolute leaps and bounds. DNA testing got extraordinarily precise, and Japan's DNA databases grew massively in sophistication. So when authorities finally unsealed that apartment in year 26, they were able to separate that intertwined blood sample with absolute certainty. And the crazy part? The DNA actually matched a suspect. Which forces a really disturbing question. Who would wait decades for a teenage grudge? Because the person they arrested, it wasn't a random burglar. It wasn't some stranger just passing through town. The killer was actually someone Haruto had once known intimately, a former school friend and neighbor. And her motive? Get this. Back in the 10th grade, Haruto had rejected her romantic proposal. That adolescent rejection festered into this deep, dark, personal grudge over many years. When she finally saw an opportunity, she carefully studied Haruto's life, she learned his daily routines, and she identified vulnerabilities so she could strike specifically when his wife was alone, aiming to inflict maximum pain. It is truly a chilling case of adolescent hurt executed with adult precision. This wasn't some spontaneous crime of passion. It was horrifyingly calculated. But you know what makes this entire explainer so fascinating? It's the mirror image of patience here. On one hand, you have a killer who nurtured a petty grudge for years, waiting for the absolute perfect moment to inflict this calculated violent revenge. And on the other side, you have Samuel Haruto, a man who spent 26 years exhibiting this quiet, disciplined patience, protecting a room, changing a nation's laws, and just trusting in science to eventually bring that violence into the light. I think this brilliantly illustrates the core takeaway of our deep dive today. Sometimes the longest wait is necessary for the most precise and complete outcome. Haruto's story is just this incredible monument to human persistence. He used his intelligence, his courage, and incredible strategic foresight to literally freeze time until the world was actually ready to solve an impossible puzzle. He made absolutely sure that the truth, no matter how severely delayed, would eventually emerge. It's such a testament to the human spirit, isn't it? The idea that an unwavering belief in justice can ultimately overcome even the most calculated acts of violence. So, as we wrap up today's explainer, looking at everything Samuel Haruto sacrificed, decades of his life, his peace of mind, a small fortune in rent, it really makes you wonder, to what extreme lengths would you go to protect the truth and achieve justice? It is definitely something to think about the next time you walk past a quiet, unassuming apartment building. Thanks so much for joining me on this one, and I hope it left you as captivated as I was.